And this is the regular meeting of the Port of the Islands Community Improvement District. We should note that today's meeting was properly noticed. A copy of the affidavit is on file at the association office. And in addition, we should note that all members of the board are here. Mr. McNamee is participating by conference and Zoom today. I believe he is out in Iowa somewhere. Steve, are you there?
I am here.
We heard you coughing most of the morning while we were setting up. It sounded like you might have a little bronchitis or something, but we appreciate you joining us.
All right, thank you.
And Mr. Vice Chairman, with that, as is your custom, we'll begin today with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, let's go to roll call.
Yes, sir. All members of the board are present. Mr. McNamee by Zoom this morning, but the record should reflect that all of the board are here.
I think if the board could adopt the motion to allow Mr. McNamee to participate remotely, fully participate by the exceptional circumstances. Okay, have a motion?
I think motion.
Second. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Aye.
Okay. It's four, Mr. McNamee. Now, everything else could be 5 votes afterwards. Okay, let's approval of the agenda.
Yes, sir.
Anything on the agenda? All right, I make one agenda change that we move Matt from the water plant to get to, and we could give his report right away.
That'd be item 7. So let's move that actually to we'll call it 3A. Let him go right after public comment.
Okay.
With that,
Anyone else? Public comments?
let's vote to approve the agenda with that one change. All right. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to move Matt up to 3A, 3B, whatever.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That takes us to
Okay, public comments.
public. We have 2 that have signed in this morning. Patrick Otenbayer. Patrick? Yes, sir. If you would come and just stand here so we can pick you up on the tape if you'd like to speak.
I don't have anything until the proper document comes up.
Okay, Mr. Gordon?
Later.
Okay. Any other public comment for items that are not on the agenda today? There'll be another opportunity at the conclusion of the meeting. If not, then we can go ahead and have our utility operations report.
Good morning. Good morning, guys, for meeting me up. I appreciate that. All right. All of our wastewater plant requirements were met. The water distribution requirements were met. Everything was conducted in accordance with contract and regulatory requirements. The only thing that's not operating still is that 2 pumps on the canal over there for the raw water and the generator. But I know that's in progress. The water treatment plant treated 2.83 million gallons of water in February. The wastewater treatment. The water treatment produced 3.57 million gallons in February, and for reuse, we distributed 7.6 million gallons in February. We read all 857 meters, and the plant used 990 gallons of chlorine. We did all of our pump station inspections, odor control checks, and the work on the plant was approved is still continuing and ongoing. We repaired, we actually did a full annual service on all the analyzer equipment over there. We replaced the analyzer pump, all of the lines, and that's what is constantly sampling our chlorine and pH levels and everything like that. We did that this past month. Worked with Annalise on a plan to potentially move the flushers or adjust them in a way that brings less ponding in the neighborhood. CID moved a bunch of dirt for us so we could move or relocate our dumpster so that our forklift doesn't have to off-road anymore. So we really appreciate that. That's a huge help for us.
Thanks, Steve.
Welcome.
The I worked with Kevin on some correspondence for FEMA, and we replaced a lift station transducer at the master lift station that went bad, and that's about it. We had no safety, and we conducted all of our safety and training scheduled. That's about it, unless you guys have any questions for me.
I had talked to you a little bit about that white powder that we had some people asking questions about. Yeah, from the irrigation water.
Some of that mineral buildup,
It's kind of a
on the
mineral.
leaves of the plants.
Oh, okay, yeah. Sure.
We talked a little bit about the amount of raw water that we mix in that has all the mineral content from the wells.
Yep.
You want to explain that a little bit?
Sure.
So they have a better idea?
Yeah, so the raw water naturally in Florida contains a lot of minerals because it's all lime rock, and as the water moves through all that stone and is pulled out of the ground, it's kind of dissolved into the water. So it does create some mineral deposits as it dries because the water evaporates, but the minerals stay. So when it rains on plants and everything, it'll wash off. On hard surfaces, sometimes it can stick longer. It has to be treated to get it off. We're getting ready to do our annual cleaning of the ROs. So once those are at full, because the output of the ROs lowers over the year when the ROs become less efficient. But once we clean them and they become more efficient, there'll actually be less raw water in the reuse system, which will help with any of that as well.
Okay. Any questions on that? Yes. Well,
The only thing Mr. Soto came to me,
We need your name, just.
I'm sorry, Mike King, Orchid Cove. I'm on the landscape committee, and Mr. Soto came to me and said that just in the past month or two, they've noticed a real lot of void deposits. So it's something that's not necessarily just the limestone. It's something new that he was concerned with. He thought maybe it would damage the plants. He wanted us to ask about it. So that's why I brought it up at the last meeting.
right. And I talked to Matt, and we had figured in our water that goes out for irrigation, it's about a third reuse water, right? And about 2/3 raw water that comes right from the wells because we don't produce enough recycled water to water all the yards. So we have to add about 2/3 more of raw well water that comes. It gets quite a bit of minerals right from the ground.
Yeah, a lot. And then what we're putting into the reuse from the wastewater plant is, it's clean and, has, normal water levels, chemical levels in it. So, I'll look into it. Like, I'll take a look at our sample results and, see if I see anything abnormally, like changing over time. But as far as I know, nothing's changed. But I'll definitely look into it and see if there's anything.
Okay, super. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Okay, approval of the minutes.
They're behind the next tab there, and these were the minutes and the continuation of your meeting of February the 16th. We had also received some suggested edits or additions to those minutes by Ms. Hanson, and I passed out a separate document where we're going to sort of transcribe some of those, and Annalise, if you'll just help sort of walk us down through here. There's still one indication or two indications here where someone was speaking and we didn't have the last name. I think the one in particular, Mr. King from Orchid Cove, only because he just identified himself. But with that, we can entertain any other additions or revisions to the minutes from your meeting of the 16th. Tony, did you have any?
No.
Okay. And then the continuation was on March the 1st, and those are separately identified. Any additions or revisions from the continuation of that regular meeting on March 1st?
Mr. Chairman, I have two.
Yeah.
On page 2, line 15, it should be 25,000 each, not 2,500 each for the deposit.
Yeah, we've already made that change.
Oh, okay. And then on page 3, line 28, it's got Prepham, Prepham. It indicates being Prepham. It should be Prepham. H-A-M.
Prepham?
Yeah.
Okay, anything else?
No, sir, thank you.
A motion and second as amended, including the edits, the separate edit document.
Have a motion?
I make a motion.
You second? I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 So approved.
Item 5 today, at your last meeting, you had authorized the selection of Johnson Engineering, your new district engineer of record. Behind the next tab in the agenda is an agreement for general engineering services, similar to ones that had been previously reviewed for specific planning tasks related to the raw water repairs on the well field. Both Tony and Tony also has a separate document with some revisions. Tony, did you see the additional contract provisions?
Yeah, I just did this morning, Kevin. Pointed them out to me. Those are the public records and the E-Verify provisions, and they're added on as Exhibit D, I believe, like in David.
Yeah, there's some new requirements with respect to agents or professional service agreements. The work product that they develop are in fact public records. Also, they have an obligation to E-Verify their employees consistent with federal law, same as we would if we had employees. And some provisions there related to insurance coverages. So unless you have some specific questions, we need a motion to authorize the chairman to execute the agreement for the new engineer of record for the community.
I got a question.
Go ahead, take it.
Okay, my only concern is we haven't talked to them, right? And they sent out the proposal, and in that proposal there was a graph, and most of their divisions are almost at capacity. There's 20 to 15%. Did you see that? I mean, are we going to overload them? Are we going to go beyond capacity by them taking us on?
You know, the other firms that contacted us had the same issue, and in fact, at the end of the day, they chose not to respond to the RFP that was issued.
Because it was going to overload them.
They are already overloaded. Any civil engineering firms in the Southwest Florida marketplace are as busy as they have ever been. I can tell you, I have a relationship with Johnson Engineering at the Pelican Marsh Community Development District. The board there is very happy with them. The principal associated with this agreement is in the Naples office, and we have worked with them thus far on some of these FEMA issues and preliminarily on our utility rate analysis because we're having to update our capital improvement plan. And honestly, Mr. Kitch, they've been really good. Dan, would you agree? At least
Yeah,
compared to the
I was
alternative?
gonna say that we have some results from a bunch of work we gave them already, for the well field that we have to have for FEMA. And we gave them a deadline, kind of a drop dead deadline, they had to have it, and we have it.
Right.
So, they're working, at
To
this
your
point,
point, they're all busy, and we just need to kind of, stay on them to make deliverables consistent with the board's priorities.
Well, I'm mostly worried about the water management guys. You got Alfredo Perez. They already assigned these guys to us, right? That's what it looked like. They were gonna assign these guys to these water management, Alec Camden, Billy, I can't even read my own writing, utilities, and then I had another question. It said that this Paul Lore is GIS. I mean, does that come with it, or do we have to pay for that?
we would have, anything we do with them, we're gonna pay for it, right?
Right.
None of it comes free. But yes, they do have a GIS section of their company that would work with us if we wanted.
One approach is, and every district does it differently, but one of my other districts, they have separate detailed task authorizations under the basic contract. And so it says, task authorizations, estimated time for deliverables, not to exceed numbers. And so that's something that I suggest Neil would prepare with Johnson Engineering to come to the board each and every time we would want that. So you'd have some accountability. That works really well.
We've done that both here, again, for our FEMA-related work on the raw water main. They've been separately tasked, and we develop budgets for those as we go.
I can tell you this much. Working with Hol Montez and working with Johnson Engineering has been a breath of fresh air.
I'm not saying, I'm just asking, I figured they were the only guys we could go with, seeing as they're the only one that responded.
This was round two, the first time we went out to bids, and we had advertised requests for proposals. Johnson Engineering had a problem with their computer system, and they were late filing on the day that the proposals were due, and we had to declare their proposal non-responsive. We were not successful negotiating an agreement with the other firm. They withdrew, and so we went all the way back and re-advertised, and for the moment, I'm satisfied with them, and I think for the most part, Mr. Truckee, who's the board's liaison on matters like this, they have been very easy to work with the last 60 days.
Yeah. One other point, again, I've had experience with Johnson Engineering for many, many years. And again, I don't get a commission or fee from the engineer, but they are engineers for, you mentioned Pelican Marsh, also River Ridge. They do some work there. And also Stony Brook. And they are really responsive as far as whenever anything's been needed by the districts or any questions or comments or reviews, they're always responsive.
Okay.
Kevin, you agree? You've worked with them as much as I have, though.
I've had, lots of phone calls, meetings. They've already tasked their utility group to work on the CIP stuff. The project manager himself, Jared, has worked with us on FEMA. We've had multiple phone calls and meetings.
Jared Brown. Yeah,
no problems.
Kevin, Steve here. I'd like to make a motion that we enter into an agreement with Johnson to do our engineering and do, as Mr. Pierce mentioned, that when they do work for us, they do it on an authorized basis, because like the CIP thing, for one thing, I think we've already figured out that that's sort of just a chase that we don't want to go down. But I want to make a motion that we move along with Johnson Engineering.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Item B today is the update on the scheduled purchase of commercial property across US 41 that was authorized again at your last meeting. In addition, Tony has prepared a resolution outlining the closing that I'll ask him to address and give us an update on the receipt of the HUD closing statement and any other matters that are pertinent. In advance, we have paid both the first and the second deposit, and those are in Tony's trust account, final price to be determined as a result of the HUD calculations, and it would be a wire transfer. But Tony, if you would outline the resolution that's in front of the board.
If I could, just an update. I appreciate the board and Mr. Sanchez working to try to have an expedited closing on this. Every closing has its little unique features. I'll sort of start at the back, maybe go forward and come back. It'll be an online notarization because of circumstances. And so we contacted an online notarization firm yesterday to try to set that up. And I've had communications with Mr. Sanchez by email this week and 2 phone calls. And I received a document last night, the operating agreement, which helped me finalize that date. So I have a draft closing packet that is in front of you, that the resolution, what it does, it finds that there's a public purpose for the acquisition, that it's appropriate use of the public funds, and attached to the resolution would be the contract, and also the draft closing statements. And in paragraph 4 of the resolution, it states that they're in substantially final form, and they're authorized and approved subject to such changes, additions, deletions, and insertions as approved by the chair, which shall be conclusively evidenced by the execution. And in doing so, I'll coordinate that with the manager and myself before those are finalized. But everything in your materials I handed out this morning, and I emailed them to Mr. Sanchez, are, I'd say, in final form. The only one that might be needs to be revised more fully is the HUD statement, only because of how to handle the prorations for the CID assessments from last year. The ad valorem taxes are paid in arrears. When you get your tax bill for the islands, there's 2 components to the gross number. One is the county's, other entities' ad valorem tax. That's the one based upon the value of the property. Those are paid in arrears. So when you prorate those from January of 2023. So on the tax bill, you can split out the ad valorem tax and the CID non-ad valorem assessment that shows up on your tax bill separate. And so the closing statement would provide for Mr. Trofecta, Mr. Sanchez and his wife, to pay the ad valorem taxes for last year because they're paid in arrears from January 1st, 2023. And then the district, and then Mr. Sanchez Trofecta is responsible to pay the ad valorem taxes from January 1, 2024 to the date of closing. And we'll get to that in a second. We're suggesting it be extended to March 19th in order to be able to coordinate the online notarization and finalization of the statement. The non-ad valorem assessments get prorated because the way they're levied, they don't get levied until you adopt your budget and the assessment resolution. They're not levied until July or August, and they are prorated based upon the fiscal year. So the 2023 non-ad valorem assessments get prorated from October 1st, 23 to the date of closing, which is March 19th, 2024. And that would be the seller's obligation. The second part would be the district's obligation after closing, but Neil and I have had discussions, and I think we've had some with Mr. McNamee and Mr. Sanchez about us going to the property appraiser or tax collector and saying, after the district closes on the property, saying we do a correction for there's a Department of Revenue form where you send in a correction or adjustment to the non-ad valorem assessments to basically take care of or eliminate the balance of it from, I'll say, March 19, 2024 to September 30th, 2024. What you have in front of you, it's the second last page of the packet I handed out. It's a very rough closing statement. I notice what's not on there is the initial deposit for which the funds have cleared. When we have attorney's trust accounts, if we get a check in that's not a cashier's check or a check from an attorney's trust account or a wire transfer or a certified check, we have to wait until those checks clear. And usually it takes 5 to 6 days, believe it or not, until we have cleared funds. We cannot write checks out of our trust account without cleared funds. It's one of those big requirements of practicing law. So the first deposit check has cleared. We received that within the requisite time frame. The second deposit check, I'm talking to you briefly, we received the second deposit check, but that may not clear by the time of closing. So what I suggest when with Mr. McNamee, Mr. Sanchez, and Neil to finalize the closing statement is that the monies remaining to be paid by the district would not include that second deposit. And when those funds finally cleared, we would cut the check back to the district. So that's why it's very rough. But all the other documents are in final form as we proposed for the closing. And again, if you look at the due from the buyer right now, it doesn't take into account the $25,000, and it doesn't adjust this handle the amount for the proration of the non-ad valorem assessment. That's still up in the air. But right now, the due from buyer would be, 566 minus the 25,000, and then whatever we are able to do on the remainder of the non-ad valorem assessments. Okay. So what I'd like the board to do is adopt the resolution, approve these documents in substantial final form, and Mr. McNamee, Neil, and I will work with the property appraiser as to how to handle the balance of the non-ad valorem assessment.
All right, Steve, do you have anything else for that?
No, we covered it all.
Tony, would that also include the First Amendment to the purchase?
Yeah, that's the second aspect is, in order to extend the closing date, I have prepared a First Amendment to the contract to extend it to March 19th. All of the terms remain the same. And so that'd be a separate motion. I was thinking of that reminder. Two motions. One, to approve and adopt resolution 2024-01. The second would be to approve First Amendment to the contract extending the closing to March 19th, 2024.
Okay, I'd like to make the first motion that we approve the resolution number 2024-01.
I'll second it.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Second motion?
To approve the First Amendment to the contract.
Yeah, the change, closing change.
Yes, sir.
All right, I'll make that motion that we approve the closing change.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I just want to make one note too. I appreciate the assistance that separately Mr. McNamee and Ms. Hanson have provided in getting documents and or updating documents. Ms. Hanson worked with Mr. Levy to get the updated survey and add additional requirements. So I appreciate that. That was done in an expedited fashion. So I do appreciate that assistance. Again, doing something in 2 weeks. Some transactions look simple, but they end up being a little more complicated than you think at times. So I appreciate that assistance, and also appreciate the patience of Mr. Sanchez under these circumstances.
All right, well, we thank everyone involved. Lisa, Steve, thank you for that. Okay.
Item C today, Mr. Chairman, is just a quick update in terms of our FEMA claim. And we also received a preliminary analysis of our claim with the insurance company. Kevin, do you mind just sharing with them on the FEMA side the initial grant with for the emergency generators and any of the conditions associated with that? I just don't know that we previously shared that before.
Yeah, we continue to move forward on several fronts. The generators being one, where we're requesting 2 new generators that are going to be stored on trailers. Everything is moving along with that. The only issue that we've had is just where we want to store them, because this area is in a flood area, and so we've identified a couple of places. But the project is moving along. FEMA, Dan can attest, they've started asking us a lot of questions, which is the obvious next step, but we're providing a lot back. It's great that we have an engineer to work with. We really need their assistance. So everything's moving forward. And we're hoping, we don't know when these payments are going to come forward, but we keep answering their questions and moving on.
What's the problem with where we're storing them? We store them in the water treatment plant, it's too low?
Yeah, FEMA requires that they're stored outside the floodplain as part of them granting the money to purchase the generator trailers. So we're looking at possibly, I made a phone call to the EOC, the Emergency Operations. They want me to work with the director, and we may, I don't know yet, but we may be able to store right at Langley. So,
Yeah, those 2 areas that are outside the flood area.
Yeah, we've identified 2. The county's emergency operations center is on Agricultural Parkway adjacent to Florida Southwestern University. And Kevin and I also have a client at the Laleh Community Development District. They have a pole barn that is there, and that will be our fallback plan, at least for this grant issue. Because we're in a floodplain here, and because they're trailer mounted, FEMA is willing to make the grant request on the condition that they not be permanently stored in the floodplain, or they would be able to be brought in from an area outside the floodplain. It has to be governmental. It can't be like a public storage area up the road or something like that. They want that property stored in a governmental facility.
Right.
I'm kind of having trouble understanding. I mean, if we need them,
We have to bring them here, but they don't
but
want
they
to
can't be here during the storm?
During the storm, if they're sitting here, they could be part of the damage. Because
So we gotta wait for everything to shut down, and then we bring them in.
We bring them in because they'll
turn everything
a high,
on.
dry place, and we can use them.
Okay.
So I was talking to him a little bit about whether we could build an island, raise up some ground and make it high
And I
enough.
actually talked about that, maybe a raised platform with a ramp. In a perfect world, I'd like for them to be out of the ultraviolet sun. Is really hard on rubber fuel lines and tires and
The cost of the generators, I would not want to park them outside.
No.
So we need some kind of.
When you need them,
building.
you need them.
But we may be able to raise up the building high enough and put a little metal building up or something that would do that. We'll figure it out at some point.
Yeah.
Where we have to go with them. But in order to continue with FEMA to purchase them and have grant money, we have to make them happy. And at this time, we'll probably store them at least for some point in time at one of the facilities.
Additionally, I just wanted you to know, yesterday we got a proposed, what is called proof of loss from your insurance company, also for Hurricane Ian. Your property insurance claim totaled $197,000. The policy that was in place during the time that Ian hit puts values at the depreciated value of assets that are lost and then less the deductible. So the proposed insurance proceeds at this point are $35,000. We're going to just review that to make sure it's consistent. Again, this is kind of a FEMA thing. They want to know what, if any, insurance proceeds were collected before they make the final award. So the balance remains FEMA eligible, but you're sort of underinsured from my perspective, and we're working on that to address that the current policy be amended to reflect replacement value as opposed to depreciated value.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's money, and I want you to know that we've got a preliminary notice of award of $34,741 as a result of the claim that we filed on your behalf.
All right, so with FEMA, to get any money from the federal government, we have to exhaust our insurance first. It's a requirement that we use all our insurance monies we put into the insurance company for a claim that exhausts that. Once that's exhausted, FEMA will step in and start picking up the difference. And right now, our well road, we just have the estimate from the, actually we're getting ahead, we got engineers' reports, but the engineering side of this, our monies are coming in to repair the pipe, the well pipe that's out there right now, $1.433 million. To put in a new pipe, which is approximately the same size that we have now, it'll just be a different type of pipe, $1,145,000. And to run a larger pipe that'll take us into the future, for future demands, $1.3 million. And that doesn't include raising the infrastructure out there and some other things. So our total grant we'll probably be looking at will be in the neighborhood of 2.5.
Yeah, add those two together, right?
Yeah, so we'll be somewhere around 2.5 million grant request with FEMA.
Cool.
And the final item that I have today is just to give you a brief update. We've now had 2 working meetings with your utility rate consultant. Again, this is a project that the board had authorized back in January. The first meeting the chairman led and participated on. The second meeting that we had with him with my staff was on Monday. They have asked for enormous amounts of data related to meter size and average consumption, because the intent here, based off of the board scope, is to try and develop a more typical utility rate structure that would have a base rate that is charged every month whether a drop of water is used or not. And that's to cover the capacity in the system and the depreciation of the assets that you have, and then go from a non-ad valorem subsidized rate to a that would be tied to meter size and then usage. And I think at this point we have provided them everything that they have asked for, not only from our staff. There were some things that were not available as a result of the transfer from the former management company to ours, like there was no trial balance provided as part of the audit for 2022. So we're working our way around that. And honestly, there was no depreciation schedule that was received when we took over last year. And so we're having to recreate some information for the rate consultants as to what the assets are and what their scheduled life is in order for them to calculate capital improvements to the existing system that you have, not capacity expansion, but just sort of scheduled replacement. And so your staff has been working to develop that. I am hopeful that we will have their preliminary findings, and the expectation, the deadline we have given is to present these next month at your April meeting. That gives me then 2 months to work on the tentative budget for fiscal 25 before that budget is due to the county on June the 15th. And so I'm pretty optimistic that we will have that. If I receive anything as by way of a draft in advance, I'll share that with you electronically, because the sooner I can get your eyes on it, the better I'll feel.
Okay. With that being said, I know we have some Marina Condominium Association people here. Do you want to speak about that at this time? This might be as deep as we get into what you probably want to talk about. You want to wait till at the end of the public comments, or would you like to address it now?
I think I'll wait till the end after I first know.
Okay, right. That's all that I had today. Item 6 today are the financials. These are behind the next tab. These are the financials as of the end of January, or the 31st. Just some overview comments here. Total cash on hand, $5,116,000 at the end of January. Additionally, there are some deposits that are shown. Your current utility rate structure requires deposits for tenants, not residents. There may be some old deposits that are on there, but the deposits are also shown on the balance sheet as current assets. Additionally, there's $15 million in fixed capital infrastructure. The depreciated value of that is $8,446,000. So total assets of $13.7 million. There were $45,000 in payables at the end of the month that are on the liability portion. And then on the next page, on the income statement, a couple of things that I think are important. We did book in January the initial FEMA check that was received. We talked about this before, $11,000, so you'll see that as a miscellaneous revenue. Additionally, there were $30,552,000 in non-ad valorem assessments that were received in January. Most of that was probably paid on the final days of December, but did not get reflected into the tax collector system until early January. Year to date, non-ad valorem or tax revenues are $329,000 against a budget of $455,000. So we've still got some ground to cover. And my inclination is two things. Normally, in most clients that I have, it'd be 85 or 90% by the end of January. This is a very seasonal community, and that to me means that people may not have residency here.
and/or the commercial properties are not in a rush to pay their taxes before the end of the calendar year. But we're about 75%, and typically it would be a little bit higher. I'm not alarmed by that because we'll be paid one way or the other, and in the event that taxes aren't paid, then they go to the certificate sale that is there. On the expense side, year to date, we're about $97,000 below budget. But there were two things that I'm going to work on with Kevin, just to make sure that we did not misclassify anything. One of them involved repairs and maintenance to the roadways. There was $4,043. I think that may have been the pressure washing of the sidewalks, but I'm going to verify that. At the bottom of page 2.
We had a couple of repairs over on Newport too, up front by the,
Concrete repairs?
yeah, they did blacktop.
Okay. I'm just saying, we're going to run that down because I can't remember exactly what that was.
We had a repair in, along the drainage.
Catch basin?
Yeah. We had to do,
It'd be on the ledger, but I flagged that.
that was on the,
And I have another one also on the same page under operations and maintenance for grounds repair, $8,500. And so I'm going to run those two things down because otherwise the budget for both of those single items reflect almost, it's not big money, but it needs to be flushed out. We continue, also, we had a big purchase in January for mosquito chemicals that are reflected in the January financials. But otherwise, as I said, year to date, we're favorable to budget by $97,000. And so with that, I'll stop and see if you have any other questions in those two things that we'll run down. And if they're pertinent, again, I'll share that with what I find in the email back to the board prior to your next meeting. Okay. If there are no questions, you can entertain a motion to accept them.
All right, I make a motion, we accept the financials as stated.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I think that takes us down, Mr. Chairman, to item 8, attorney's report. Tony, do you have anything further?
Yes, a couple of items, if I may. Following up on Neil sent me an email at his office this week with regards to the need for the depreciation schedule that was not in the materials received from Premier or CalT. We're going to notify his attorney, and we'll also talk with Lenore, my partner, about filing a motion to have the court expedite consideration of our lawsuit. Their response is due Monday, but still, I think because of the nature of everything, we need to kind of speed it up a bit. So we'll be filing that next week. With regards to the PrepMac lawsuit, nothing has changed other than, again, as I mentioned last time, we have Mr. Dorrell's deposition coming up in 2 weeks, and we'll be prepping him for that. We're having a preparatory session. Working with the county has been interesting. With Ms. Hanson and I working with it, I appreciate very much the fact that, for example, on 170 Sunset K, there's a swimming pool and deck being constructed in the backyard. So there were some concerns expressed about whether or not those improvements were either in the drainage easement or swale. And the old adage, or that a picture is worth 1,000 words, it's worth 10,000 words. Ms. Hanson sent me some photographs. This week's been a blur, so it was either yesterday or the day before, but I forwarded them on to the county staff and also copied Commissioner LaCastro on all those. And he has also jumped in, as Kevin reminded me this morning, that the county is recognizing when they saw the photograph of the rear of 170 Sunset K with dirt in the swale, probably at least a 5 foot or maybe 2 feet. I think that got their attention. We talked about, I talked to the county staff, emailed them about what we believe are encroachments based upon the plans that were submitted. So that's one issue. The second issue is having, I'll call it a collaborative, organized, coordinated fashion on a go-forward basis to identify what line is utilized to determine setbacks and drain, because on the plat of Case 2, there's an issue with regards to mean high water line, the witness line, and I think the county, and Ms. Hanson, correct me if I'm wrong, or if I'm being too kind, they've been inconsistent. and how they've applied it.
Very kind,
I'm sorry?
very kind. You're supposed to get notification of anything new,
That's correct.
and, you know.
That has not happened. There's a bunch of new personnel. The people that we met with, only one is still there, but the idea is we're going to have, trying to set up a conference among all the interested parties. Ms. Hanson, District Representative, myself, Kevin Andrew Neal, the county engineer and/or surveyor, and the county building department folks. And also, I also had a conversation with Jamie French, who's over all those folks in building and department. And I saw him at the county commission meeting last week and spoke with him again twice since that time and Jamie's pretty responsive to let him know of these concerns by the district. So we're trying to set up the meeting with the county staff. I received some dates yesterday. I've not had a chance to respond yet to get together, but it's frustrating, I know, to the board, and it's frustrating to us to try to get, number one, get their attention, number two, get consistency. I don't know if I want to add to that at all or not.
It's just a matter of notifying the CID when somebody's gonna build something, so that we can ensure that all the easements are.
With all that's gone on that street, they nobody warned them or anything then?
Well, I think what may have happened, I'm not trying to make excuses for them, I'm just guessing. There have been changes in some personnel. Cormac Giblin, who...
No, I meant neighbors. I meant nobody said anything, so we better get that checked out? Jeez.
I don't know. But I think we're making some progress.
May I make a suggestion?
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, may I make a suggestion? Now, the last time that we had an encroachment situation, of course, was, I don't remember if it was on that street, but it may have been with that pipe that we worked on. But the CID spent at least $25,000 enforcing the easement encroachment. And I think the community is pretty well aware of, you know, if you're going to encroach into our easement, that you need to come to us and we'll try to work this out proactively. I would like to suggest that we make a motion or whatever we need to do to make a rule that going forward, that if the district has to spend a bunch of money or spend money defending our encroachments, that cost should be passed on to that residence. Is that something we can do, Tony?
The district does not have the authority to fine as opposed to the county, but the district can adopt a rule that says you cannot engage in any activity in the district easements until and unless you get the permission and authority of the district. And then that can, unfortunately, it would take a court action to enforce that. But I have other districts where they have adopted that. One other district adopted a rule saying, rule regarding the district's stormwater management system and conservation, because that district was having the same issue. Then that document actually gets recorded, so everybody in their chain of title will see that rule. But again, we do not have the authority to fine.
I don't think that's what he's saying.
That's what I was gonna say. He's not
saying that, he's just saying we have to spend money to.
Can we charge them directly? No. The only way we could do that is if we were to say you're violating a rule, we're going to sue you for any damages or losses. We don't have the ability to impose a lien. One other approach might be sometimes if the district needs to engage in certain capital infrastructure improvements caused by the actions of certain individuals, they might be able to argue that they are the only ones that benefit from it. We can specially assess them, but it's difficult. So again, the mechanism that's there for CDDs is more constrained than the counties. And so that's why it's important to get the counties, approval. But also I think it would be helpful to have a rule saying prohibiting any activity. And I can bring a draft to the next board meeting so the board can see an example of it.
But then again, if you have, you're talking about putting something in place to warn people and whatnot. But if they choose not to do it, we still incur all the costs of bringing it back to where it should have been. There's no downside for a resident not just moving forward and doing what they want. And then we have to spend all the money to try to correct it or whatever.
The only other alternative, again, in filing a lawsuit to enforce the rule, yes, there would be cost incurred in that, but also the party would be responsible for their attorney's fees. So, I mean, there's an incentive for a person to not be violating or to come into compliance with the district rules.
But if we had that rule that you were talking about, couldn't we halt
It
progress?
would give a basis for us to file a lawsuit and ask for temporary injunction, yes. I think it's a stronger basis than what's out there now.
I was just hoping we could do something without going down a lawsuit area. I mean, we don't need to be suing each other. Just
No, Steve, I don't disagree. I'm sorry.
go ahead.
No, I don't disagree, but unfortunately, the legislature has not provided that authority to community development districts. Generally. Again, I've taken position sometimes that people are engaging in activities that cause damage to district infrastructure. We might be able to specially assess them for that, but that would be on the assessment rolls, and that is a little more complicated. At times that can be possible.
Can you put that together and have it for the next meeting?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Steve.
I also would like to state that that the encroachment or the possible encroachment on there, I'm not looking at that residence as them trying to do something other than what they thought it was correct. I'm just trying to protect us in the future, and also make it so that we don't go through that same thing that we went with these pipes in the past. I mean, because it caused a lot of rift in the community, and I'm just trying to be proactive as to how do we facilitate this without it getting into a legal battle, because nobody gains from that. That's all I have.
What I'll provide for the board next is an example of a rule that exists in another district, and the board can decide whether they want to proceed to adopt that kind of rule also.
Okay.
And let's see, Sunset K, Pragmatic, nothing further to report. And I do appreciate Ms. Hanson working with me. Yes, sir.
Tony, one other thing. We were talking about the ERCs over at the marina when it was expanded, and you were going to look into that. Did you have a chance to do any of that?
Nothing, Mr. McNamee, I apologize, nothing further, but I will delve into it. Since I have more free time than I did for the last couple of weeks, I apologize, but I will. And I'll provide that information to Neil and Kevin and to you also, if that's acceptable.
We're going to need that.
Oh, and to Mr. Truckee. And to the board. And I'll provide it to the whole board.
Okay, is that it?
Yes, sir.
All right, engineers report.
None today, and I didn't show any old business either from last month's minutes.
Okay, we kind of talked a little bit about what our engineers are working on right now already. Just preparing cost estimates and plans for a lot of the work we're going to do out on the well road at this time. So, anything else? Old business?
Me, old business.
Your old business?
Yeah. How old?
Well, I don't know about that. Okay.
We're still working on getting the swales cleaned out and properly leveled. So we were working on it again this week. And I did get the quote to move flush valves, but I'm holding on to that until we talk about remote chlorinators, because it doesn't make sense to do it and then do a remote chlorinator. If the flush valves were to increase the chlorine at the end of the street, and we put in remote chlorinator, we'd be spending money twice.
Okay.
The only one that really needs to be done is going to be the one at end of Venus, because they're building a new house there, and it's in the middle of the property.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
Just moving it over to the.
So it's got to be moved to the swell.
You know, this is kind of an aside, but I rode my bike around it. That Venus is that elevation. There's no, like, limit. I mean, they look like they're 3 feet higher than their neighbor. I mean, I understand why I would do it, but, you know.
But that's the new thing.
Excuse me. Joe, that building right now, they're preloading that area there with with fill and letting it settle. So that level will come down.
On Venus.
No,
I'm talking
That's
on Venus.
Sunset.
That's what he's talking about.
Yeah, okay.
right? Is that Venus?
Yeah,
If you, if you want, I can explain it further.
That's all right, Joe.
Go ahead, Joe.
Okay, so what they're doing is called a surcharge. They load they loading, from the engineer's recommendation, they loaded 5 feet of dirt where the house will be, which will simulate the weight of the house, which will compact any organic material underneath the dirt. And they monitor it weekly. After they get some settlement, usually takes about 30 days to 60 days. Then they'll scrape it to the FEMA finished floor elevation. So that will not be the height. The height will be a foot higher than the 2 other houses because as of February 8th, FEMA raised the flood elevation a foot in our area. So it's going to have to be a foot higher, but that won't be noticeable over such a wide span. But that's just a temporary measure. It's called surcharging, and that will be scraped away. We've done it on a few other houses in the port. On Wilderness, we did 2, and we did one on Newport, the same thing. And it's scraped, and you could see the houses are all at the same level. So just to clarify, I just wanted to input. Thank you.
That's a move.
Thanks, Joe, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Anyone else with old business? New business? We talk about a new one?
I do.
Take the floor.
Swales. I think we should send out a mailing to the people who have swales in their backyard to remind them not to put things in the swale. We're coming into the rainy season, so save plants, pots, things like that, to remove them. It doesn't much matter in the dry season, but the rainy season it matters. So I just happened to notice when I was walking around with Soto that there's a few people that have planters and stuff like that in their swale that kind of block the swale from going from one side to the other. So just need to remind them to take them out for the rainy season.
Do you want to do a mailing on that, or can we put something?
I would do a separate flyer in the next utility bill.
Yeah.
It's the cheapest way to get that out, but I'll make that note. It's the consensus of the board, and we'll have something included in the next.
Because we can include it, I'm for that. If we're going to do a separate mailing, I don't know that we have to spend that.
Yeah, I mean, we got a couple months.
Okay.
I just figured I'd bring it up now so we can put it in the next water bill to remind people.
Okay, that email list that we started putting together forever.
Yeah, we got a decent response. I have not asked Alyssa in our office, but as we received voluntarily email addresses for future notifications, we could include, a blast email to the community and maybe a general notice on the website too. We get good comments on that.
Okay, yeah, that's why I was saying if we have to do a separate mailing, I'm not in favor of that.
We'll put that stuff.
But we have the other alternatives now that we can start using. If we have enough of the people turned in their email address, that's a great tool. You can send it to them as a reminder. And between there and the website, that should cover most of our people, I would think.
And we did the second notice in the most recent utility bill to sign up for emails.
If Soto though can, the average person will not pay a lot of attention to that, but if Soto can give us some locations of where people have obstructions in that rear yard swale, then we can do maybe some targeted either emails or mailings to those individuals before we get into June, July.
Yeah, might be.
Okay, just a note to everyone here, it's great if we have your email. Not going to abuse it. It'll simply be for things like this where we want to get notifications out to everybody. That's what it's kind of designed for. So if you haven't sent in your email address and stuff to our management company, do it soon. You want to be in on that. Okay, supervisor's requests.
I got one, it's a simple one maybe. We never fixed the entrance to the marina where it floods in the front. It floods all the time in the rainy season, and it's Is there any way we can cut in some drainage, cut some of the curb away? or-
I asked Soto to give me a price on it,
Oh, okay.
to cut the curb,
Yeah,
so that it'll go out into the grass.
Right.
Yeah, I did ask.
shouldn't cost that much to do that.
I have a suggestion as well.
Maybe in front of the fire.
I was just wondering if we could start looking at doing. I don't know if the lights have been fixed over there at the entrance of Newport. I would like to suggest maybe taking out a bunch of that vegetation that we've got in front of that sign there. Most of it's that tall shrubbery. It sort of blocks a lot of things. I'd like to see someone come in and help us get an idea of maybe taking some of that out and put flowers and lower plants in there, maybe stuff that takes less maintenance and whatnot. If anybody has any ideas on that, I'd sure like them to get a hold of the CID and give us that idea. I also was down Newport Drive because I know that Catherine and some of the others had spoken about maybe doing some more landscaping in the meridian there on Newport. Yeah, there is some areas there that definitely could use some stuff, but we still are looking from some input from the community over there as to what they'd like to see. Thank you.
Catherine, you have anything to say?
I do not.
Okay. Steve and a lot of people helped out with the K's Drive entrance, and I think it looked very nice. A big improvement there. We could get together, and that didn't cost us very much money, thanks to Steve had some equipment, and a lot of people came to help, and things like that. So we could do the same thing over at Newport, but we'd want to know what we're doing there. We have to get an idea of what you might like, not like. If you have ideas, get them to somebody on the board or something, and we'll take a look at that. And then when the time comes, we're always looking for help on those types of projects. Community project, we do it at very little to no cost versus having someone come in and do it. So anyway, that's what he's talking about there. It takes us to public comments. Okay, at public comments, we can get you up there. If we're going to speak on the marina boat docks and things, I know we have several people here. We would appreciate it if you don't cover the same subject more than once. So if someone wants to come up and talk about something that we have to look at, we will look at that. What we don't want to see is people that keep coming up and talking about the same thing over and over again. So you'll come up, give us your name here, one at a time, and then we'll get this going.
You're the guy.
I was over visiting with some friends. I'm Ron Westerman, Case Drive. Visiting with some friends over at the marina and noticed a few different things over there. Had some discussion with them, and I'm looking for some guidance from the board on what might possibly be done. There's some big safety issues over there. It looks like they're having a failure on the seawall in a couple of areas. Some of the infrastructure in the swales to drain the water, the seawall itself, and the lighting over there isn't so perfect. At night, we could really see somebody get injured. Even during the day, with the kids and all that play along the seawalls. And you could have a catastrophic failure over there from the looks of it. So,
yeah, you know,
I'm looking for some guidance.
I'm new, but I was not of the opinion that seawalls are public property. I thought.
My understanding is it's hotel property. And again, that's why I'm looking for guidance. Who would we talk to possibly get that resolved?
I would, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that to the extent you have a life safety, health, welfare issue, building code, other issues, if you have failing seawalls like the dead men and all those, or any other erosion that's causing a failure, I would bring that to the attention of Cuyahoga County. Have to notify code enforcement, and they may say it's violating the codes or safety, health, safety, welfare. lighting is, again, that's not a CID issue, because it's not our property. And to the extent that if we have any drainage swales that are district swales, it is our responsibility, but if it's not, then it's another issue. But I think those are, the seawall failures or something to bring, I think, the attention of Cuyahoga County. Maybe even pollution control department, I don't know. But once you get them involved, you have to recognize whenever county staff show up, they look at everything.
Okay, well,
Yeah, that's the only.
the thoughts are, it's looking to me like it's really going to affect our boating community here with that whole area, and it's something that needs to be looked at. So you're saying go to the county and
That's my suggestion, Mr. Chairman, to the board, that they go to, yeah.
I just thought, I mean, that must have been inspected when they did their extension, no? I mean, they wouldn't have looked at the, the base that was there already? I mean, I don't know, I'm just, the extension came right off.
The extension would be to add extra docks. It wouldn't be to evaluate or.
Yeah, well, Don's out here all the time, right?
He is.
Every 2 weeks, he said.
Yeah.
So is that something he could look at?
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Or he could tell you who would look at it.
Okay, thank you much.
All right, next.
Patrick Oakbaker, slip G12, 525 Newport Drive. I'm not associated, I'm not an official from the marina, but I hear some comments, and not everybody really knows, I think, necessarily what's going on. We mentioned an expansion of the marina. 2 docks are lengthened, you put bigger boats on, and there's actually less number of boats. That was their goal, have room for some bigger boats, less boats overall. Some of those are privately owned, some of those are cut back. They had been sold them. The seawall, as I understand it, is owned by Tom, that owns a resort. Good luck getting him to pay to fix anything. It is failing, in fact, in front of my friend's boat. All it would take is probably some rebar fencing and some dirt and gravel, but I think he's afraid to touch it. If you touch it, it's yours. But it's already been proven that that is hotel property. That wall, the seawall, is hotel property. It's not the marina's. The rest of the marina is owned by the county. And I'm personally looking into possibly writing a grant, see what I can do to get our canal dredged for the benefit of the marina and for all you people that I know might have boats behind your houses. Between 34 and 35, at low tide we're 2 feet. Yeah. We get a good hurricane in here that fills that in, nobody's going to get out of here. So I'm looking into that now. I've got a couple calls into the mayor in Air Lake City, who's currently, I think you've got the Army Corps of Engineers is going to dredge the Barron River. So I got to find out how he started that process. And I don't know if that's something that CID board would want to get involved with, or just be up on what's going on. This is going to benefit the whole community, not just the marina. Benefit is the county's got some skin in the game. It's their ramp. And we're not even looking for necessarily a dredging permit, but a dredging maintenance. So we'll see how that happens. Obviously, they do that at the entrance of Marco and downtown Naples every couple of years. So,
The county does it?
well, I don't know yet. That's what I got to find out. Are they using private funds for this? They get grants?
I would think there'd be
more
engineers involved or.
Right. Right, but it's been years, and since the last hurricane, it's only gotten worse. So,
Okay.
Excuse me. Excuse me. I think that what you're doing there is a great idea, and I know the CID doesn't own any of that, so we really don't have any skin in that game. But if there's something that the board can do, or I personally can do to help you with that, please reach out to me, because that's a very, very good thing to be getting done.
okay, appreciate it. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
I'll try to get some other, if you guys need more marina info, I'll try to get some people that are, officials with the marina here to give you some accurate numbers and things. But that's what happened with the expansion. They've got them for bigger, actually the cats now, so you have one vote in place of 2 and 3 in a lot of areas.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right, yeah, and if this does lead to the Corps of Engineers or South Florida Water Management or anything, or Basin, through all this grant stuff, I've gotten to know quite a few of those people. We might be able to help out. Anyone else?
Well,
Go ahead, Steve.
can I say something too? We spoke last time about, we got an electrical deposit put out there for doing those aerations of $5,000. I'd like somebody to look into whether or not that money was ever actually used, and if not, if we could get some of that refunded. The other thing that we talked about last meeting too was adding an additional light or two into South Stella Maris's cul-de-sac area there that at night is so dark for safety reasons. I would like to figure out who is in charge of that and see if we can get get somebody from the electrical company to look into putting a couple more lights in for us, please.
On the last meeting, we said we were going to do a survey to see where we had dark spots. Last meeting, we said we were going to do a survey to see where we had dark spots.
It's all dark back in here.
Yeah, well, did we go around and check anywhere?
We can check every place.
Okay.
If we're going to do it, let's do it.
Let's take a ride sometime.
All right.
Anything else, Steve?
No, sir. Your next meeting is April 19th.
Okay. If that's it, we are going to wrap this thing up.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I second it.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all.
Dan, I just sent you and Neil.
Well, Mr. Truckee,
Yes, sir.
you brought it in an hour and a quarter. That's a new record.
Okay. So now you know what you got to do when you get back.
There you go.
You set them up, Dan.